In this episode of Podcasting Secrets, you'll meet Michelle Dale, who's living the digital nomad dream on the Red Sea in Egypt. As the founder of Virtual Miss Friday and the creator of Outsourcing, Michelle reveals her secrets to building a scalable online business from virtually anywhere in the world. Discover how to leverage outsourcing to help skyrocket your podcast growth and efficiency. From finding the right talent to managing remote teams across time zones, Michelle shares game-changing strategies that can help transform your business. Whether you're a solopreneur or running a small company, this episode might be your ticket to location-independent success. Hello, incurable creators. I'm excited to bring you some bonus episodes featuring exclusive interviews from the 2023 PodUp Virtual Podcasting Summit. Each Thursday for months, you're going to hear interviews from a diverse range of podcasting and marketing experts. My hope is these repurposed interviews will inspire you with new ideas and insights to take your podcast to the next level. And of course, remember to listen every Tuesday for our regular episodes of Podcasting Secrets as well. Now, let's dive into today's bonus interview from PodUp's 2013 Podcasting Summit. Hello, I'm Nathan William, the CEO of PodUp and the host of the Podcasting Summit. And I'm joined in this interview with Michelle Dale. Michelle is the founder of Virtual Miss Friday and the creator of Outsourcing. Michelle specializes in creating scalable online business operations for solo entrepreneurs and small to medium businesses. Michelle has created this system and helps people create systems to run their own online businesses from anywhere in the world. Where are you speaking to us from today, Michelle?
So today, I'm coming from my home in Egypt, where I live on the Red Sea.
So you're kind of an expert in helping people create businesses where they can live wherever they want and provide for their family in those locations.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of became my passion because I left the UK back in 2005 just to kind of like take a little bit of a sabbatical, go traveling. I booked a one-way ticket. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then as soon as I landed off my first plane on that one-way ticket, I absolutely knew that I wasn't going back. And then I had to come up with some creative ideas back then of how to make a living while traveling. And obviously, like I turned to the internet as my first port of call. And that's how it all kind of started.
So tell us more about your business and how your type of business can help podcasters.
So my business now is all about the operations of digital businesses. So I'm very much involved in the administrative side of things, the creative side, the design side, but also the marketing side. When I look at a business, I don't just look at one particular area of the business. I try to look at the business as a whole, and then I try to find the most streamlined and efficient approach to operating and running that business, where we also incorporate things like goals and targets and, financials and things like that, but doing it as cost effectively as humanly possible, really, and streamlining as much as possible to get a really good, optimally run online business.
So a lot of businesses today realize they need a podcast, but they don't feel they have time to consistently produce those episodes. And so the answer to that question is probably outsourcing pieces of it, hiring other people that can help you do the execution. What ideas or suggestions, secrets or strategies do you have that you'd like to share with our audience about how they might be able to outsource elements of their podcast?
Okay, well, it's really interesting because you can pretty much outsource everything bar the actual podcast itself if you're the host, obviously. But you can certainly outsource doing surveys and doing outreach to find out information, what people want to listen to from you. You can have people send out emails to your list to find out, like what is your audience looking for, do online internet research, that type of thing. Obviously, people can also plan and schedule for you, like give people access to your calendar, and then you say to those people, okay, like when would be good times for us to do recording, for us to do scheduling, posting, that type of thing. So you can have someone kind of manage the whole calendaring aspect of it as well for you, not to mention coming up with content ideas, stuff that you're going to fill your episodes with. That can also be outsourced. Obviously, the podcast editing can be outsourced. And I would encourage everyone to do this if you're not like familiar with this stuff, because if you try to do it all yourself, you're never going to watch a podcast. You'll still be sat there in a year's time trying to figure all this stuff out, whereas you could have been doing it for you already. But obviously podcast editing and, anything basically that doesn't require you at the helm.
I'm a huge believer in this concept of outsourcing, and I've done it for decades now. With our current company, PodUp, 2/3 of our employees are located in India. And we have very talented people that are members of our team there that do development and marketing and design and a lot of those functions. Which countries have you found are the most effective for outsourcing? I know a lot of people might have issues with the culture or the time zone or language barriers or accents. Where are the most effective places to maybe overcome those issues?
That's a really interesting question. I would definitely say it depends on the business and it depends on what specific services or things that you're trying to outsource, what specific tasks, because I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all for that. Yes, I've hired a lot of virtual assistants in my time. More than 80 virtual assistants have worked through my business, some full-time, some part-time. And we have hired in places like India and the Philippines, and the more cost-effective countries. And obviously I've got some people on my team right now here in Egypt. But I would definitely say it's more about the character and the training. So if someone like me, for example, is very proficient in training, I know how to teach people what to do. I know how to manage people online very well. I even created a business model around that. So for somebody like me to do it, it's going to be much more effective than if somebody was going to say to themselves, right, I'm going to hire all these different individuals and try and piece together all of my podcasts with these different individuals from different countries and things like that and have it all come together, because that in alone can be quite a difficult thing to do. So I wouldn't say there's one specific country, but I would definitely say there has to be one specific methodology behind the organization and the structure of how the work is delegated in order to get the result that you want.
What secrets or strategies can you share with us of how to organize and set up that structure to work with a remote team?
Yeah, you're going to need a project management system. You're going to need to have everyone logging into one central location. You're going to want to have discussions. If you are doing any kind of training, make sure it's video tutorials wherever possible, the screencast tutorials, so it can be looked on and gone back on, particularly with non-native speaking people. So sometimes they have difficulty reading written instructions, or if like you're talking in a meeting or something, it might be a little bit fast. If you do video work, then they can slow it down, or they can pause and they can see a visual representation of what's happening. But definitely the project management space, having everyone in one location and having something like an intranet with formal instructions which are very detailed about every piece of the result that you want to see.
So sometimes that's called an SOP, or standard operating procedures, where you go through and you document the processes. And then a good project management system, I know a lot of people use Monday or Trello or Asana. Is there a good project management system you recommend?
Yeah, I use Active Collab, and I've used Active Collab since 2008, and I've never felt the need. I tried other systems throughout the years thinking, like something might be better out there, but I've always come back to Active Collab, and so that's what I tend to use.
I've had the most luck with India over the years, been doing that for decades. I've tried the Philippines, and with the Philippines, I've had some issues with time zones. It's a little bit harder for the US and the Philippines to work together. How do you deal with time zone issues?
So we basically work to deadlines with people. So rather than have people sat there between certain hours of the day, I mean, obviously, if you have to do calls, then somebody has to compromise and be on the wrong end of the day. But if you don't have to do calls, then you can really get by a lot with video messages, audio messages, and a lot of interaction through these collaborative discussion areas. So you end up working with deadlines rather than being there on specific times of the day.
So besides a really good project management system, what other technologies can help you effectively run an outsourced team?
Well, it depends. I mean, if we're talking specifically about a podcast, then there's obviously going to be various different marketing tools and systems that are going to come into play that you might want to use in the process of marketing your podcast. For example, we're using Bonjoro a lot, which is for video messages. So, you might want to kind of like have somebody send out recorded videos to welcome new subscribers to your podcast. We use other systems, for like getting feedback from podcasts, which are things like Video Ask. So what I would suggest really is whenever you're looking at building or structuring the operations of a business and you're doing it specifically to kind of like market the business, you want your team using the systems which are going to get the very specific results. And again, there's no one size fits all. The only thing I would definitely say that I do not compromise on in any way is a system. I'm a Podia Pros. It's a system called Podia. And basically it's an online business development system. It's for digital products, websites. It does everything. And this is the only system where I don't compromise on where I build websites anymore, simply because it has everything. But it really depends. The most important thing is you're having the right systems for the right type of purpose for the business or the project or whatever it is you're doing. And it's important that those systems, the people that are working in them, are well versed in them as well.
Yeah. And I think a really good chat system of some type is good too. Some kind of messaging system where whether it be Google Chat or Slack or something, where you can easily communicate back and forth. So
there's a built-in chat system inside Active Collab where we work. So we tend to use that, or I kind of got my go-to besides that is WhatsApp. I use WhatsApp for so much.
Yeah. Inside the United States, WhatsApp isn't as big of an application, but as we work with people outside the United States, that seems to be the primary communication means. So I use WhatsApp a lot. How do you say? Old school business owners are used to people walking into the office and people punching a time card and knowing exactly that they're there and they're focused. And sometimes it's a little bit scary, and it's a leap of faith to be able to hire somebody that's in a completely different country and to know that they're really working hard, that they're working when they say they're working. What advice do you have for the business owner who's making that transition to a remote team and being able to trust and know that those people really are working when they say they're working and working?
It really comes down to the type of person that you hire. So obviously, you're not employing anyone in this respect. Most of the time, people are working online remotely with independent contractors who have their own businesses. All my team members have their own businesses and they're independent contractors, and I hire them and I work with them. So that in itself tells me that they're going to have more of an eye on the ball on my business because it's their business. Do you see what I mean? So obviously, the more my business is functioning, the better my business is doing, the better their business is doing. And that's kind of the difference between when you're hiring kind of like workers that are kind of like, sat there and punching in and punching out and things like that. So that's one thing. But I would definitely say as well that you have to follow your instinct and you have to follow your gut. And if you are suspecting from the initial conversation that you have with someone that they might be against a slacker or not doing what they say they're going to do, then I would probably say go with your gut and don't hire them. And then finally, do your homework, read their testimonials, read their feedback from other clients, see if they've got any kind of like anything that's around online, which they have like a social proof of what kind of a person they are and how they do business. Because all these things will add up, and then kind of like each one is a little notch more in the I can be trusted kind of category. And failing that, don't go in for a full hire. Just do, okay, we'll put you on a trial. We'll give you a couple of tasks to start with just to see how they do. Like kind of, give them one project or have them do one thing or two things, and then just ease them in gently. And at any moment, if you feel like, well, this isn't going to work out, then obviously you can rehire.
And one thing that I would add to that is if it's not working, move on quickly. Don't stay in a bad situation. That's a mistake I've made a lot, where I have not moved on as quickly as I should have in some situations.
One tip I will say, especially because a lot of the times there can be a lot of misunderstanding, especially if you're hiring someone where English is their second language or, whatever languages they're speaking. So always when you give someone instruction, ask them to come back to you and tell you what you want them to do to make sure they have a good understanding in their own words. So like if you say like, okay, you've got to do this and this, these are the instructions, they go away and take it. Ask them to come back to you and say, okay, so what is it you're doing? And get them to tell you. And this is a really good way to make sure they've got a good understanding of it.
One tip that I have is when I have people that are writing messaging, emails and such for me, and English may not be their first language, I usually require that their education has been done in English. And then I usually require Grammarly to be on their computer so that they have a really good editor that's telling them when they've got something spelled wrong or is not grammatically correct. I usually require them to use Grammarly for anything that they send out. Do you have any other tips on that?
Certainly from me and my own team, I don't have anyone who's non-native English speaking sending anything out to anyone. So if somebody's hiring me, then I will always have a native English speaker dealing with anything to do with their clients or their work or anything like that. Obviously for me, I'm a little bit more relaxed about it in my own business, but still, yeah, like the tools are very helpful, like Grammarly and stuff like that. But I would say if it's something super important, like sending out emails to thousands of people and things, I would definitely either have it written by a native English speaker or at least checked by a native English speaker before it's sent out.
Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is brought to you by Pod Allies, the done-for-you podcasting services solution. When I speak with CEOs about their podcast, one of the most common comments that I hear is that they know they need a podcast, but they don't have time. Have you ever wondered how some businesses find a way to still run their podcasts while juggling their crazy day-to-day operations? The secret might be simpler than you think. Let me introduce you to Pod Allies. This is a service that's changed the game for businesses in the podcasting world. Pod Allies is a done-for-you podcast production and marketing service. They understand that while many businesses understand the immense value podcasting can have for their business, finding time to produce, syndicate, promote, and monetize a show can be challenging. Pod Allies offers a dedicated team to handle virtually all aspects of your podcast production. From strategy and branding to audio and video editing and guest scheduling, they've got you covered. They even take care of creating blog posts, transcripts, and syndicating your content across multiple platforms. What sets Pod Allies apart is their use of PodUp, their proprietary podcasting software suite. This allows them to streamline the entire podcasting process, saving you time, effort, and a bunch of money. If you're ready to become a thought leader, connect with your audience, and grow your business through podcasting without all of the investment of time and cost of doing it yourself, Pod Allies might be the perfect solution for you. To learn more or to schedule a free consultation with a podcast expert, visit podallies.com. That's podallies.com. Now back to the show. What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen people make regarding outsourced employees, outsourced team members, and how do we mitigate those risks?
Probably not taking enough responsibility for the delegation aspects, for the explaining, and really for me the biggest one is the management of expectations. From the people being hired, they should be asking their clients, and as a client, you should expect them to ask the specifics of, what are you expecting from me? Like, how can I manage your expectations? So the person being hired knows what the client is wanting, and then it has to go vice versa. As the person hiring, you have to be very clear about what your expectations are of the people that you're hiring, and never assume that they're going to know what those are. Like it may be really obvious to you, but it definitely might not be to them. So for me, I always have, I have like a pledge that I give people that people can look at on my website before they've even worked with me or hired me. And it basically says, these are the things that I expect from you. These are the things that I can deliver if you have these expectations of me. And these are the things that we need to work together on and kind of mutually move forward with. And that has probably been the single, it's also about boundaries, but that's probably been the single biggest thing that has really helped me move forward and not make the mistakes in the hiring process. not just from a point of me hiring people, but also being hired myself. If you've got very, very clear expectation management, which is clearly communicated up front, then everyone's going to go in with their eyes wide open and there'll be very little room for error.
One of the biggest issues I have is like you said, where you understand something but you expect the other person to understand it and we don't communicate the details. When I train someone who's working with an outsourced employee for the first time, I usually teach them over-communicate, over-communicate, over-communicate are the three most important rules. And the analogy that I give them is, let's say you hired a 14-year-old young man to come clean your garage for you, right? And you just said, clean my garage. What is the chance that that garage is going to be cleaned the way that you're envisioning it cleaned in your mind? There's zero chance. And you've got to give the details. You've got to say, okay, all of these things that are on the floor, they need to go up here on the floor. You need to reorganize these buckets. You need to redo these. You've got to take them step by step and then you've got to sweep when you're done. You've got to give them every step that you expect in detail. And the same thing has to happen when you're working with an overseas team. The same thing should happen with a US team as well, or a native team that's in your same location. But when you're working with overseas team, you have to give them the details. You have to spec the project. And if you do that, then your chance of success radically increases. But it's too many people, they just skip that step and they say something like, this page is broken, fix it, right? And instead of that, you've got to say, okay, when I go to this URL and I try to do this is what happens. Instead, this is what I want to have happen, right? And maybe even record that in a video format so there's just no room for miscommunication.
Yes, give examples, show photos, do anything that you possibly can to visually represent. A lot of people come to me when they've had a disaster with a website developer. They will often say, like, this website developer, like, completely screwed me over and, took all my money and it's not what I wanted. And then you just realize that the person has not given them any indication of what they wanted, and not been specific enough, not given them examples, not showed them, things that they like or they don't like and things like that. They're just like, build me a website. And then when they get something they don't want, suddenly the developer is the bad guy. And oftentimes it's the other way around. You've got to take a lot of responsibility if you're going to be delegating and hiring particularly non-native English speakers or offshore, people or something like that. For me, I went through a crazy period in the middle of my career, I guess, in the middle of my business, where I needed a lot of staff and I did a lot of hiring from these countries. And I really learned the hard way that sometimes as well, it's actually more cost effective and a better investment if you hire one really good, qualified native speaker than 10 who are not. Simply from the aspects that if you don't have time to invest in the team and the training and everything like that, you're going to be disappointed.
Okay, I know when I've worked with team members in India, there's been a unique set of legal and ethical and HR issues that I've had to adjust for. For example, in India, usually you have to give 30 days notice when you let somebody go. Or they have a different set of holidays, like tomorrow is a holiday in India. And they get their holidays, maybe not our holidays, which is a good thing because then we easily have coverage during our holidays. What specific legal, ethical, cultural issues would you advise people to look out for, be sensitive to as they work with overseas teams?
Well, I think, again, it's more about taking responsibility for your own business. Like, for example, if I have tasks that need to be done, I will train a bare minimum of 2 people to do the task, because it's not just about holidays. What if somebody was off sick or, had to go maternity leave or something like that? There are times when you always don't know in advance when people are going to be gone or missing or, anything can happen. So for me, it's more about not kind of recognizing the cultural differences, but putting contingencies in your own business to make sure that no matter what occurs or arises, you already have a plan in place if it does. So, everyone has to be respectful of people's holidays and stuff like that. But the way I work and the way I operate, a lot of the time, there's the holidays and the days off and things like that. They don't really matter. because I'm not going into an office and I'm not working 9 to 5, So for me, it's more about, again, the expectation management of when do you want things done, and telling people, okay, I need this back by next Tuesday at 4 o'clock your time, for example. And then all the bit in between doesn't really matter as long as you get the result, right? So me, I'm all about communicating the results, what I want to see. I expect my clients to do the same with me. I want to know what result you want. What are you expecting? And then I will obviously make sure that happens regardless of whether I have someone go off sick or someone's on holiday or anything like that. So for me, it's really about taking full ownership of every possibility that could occur. So no matter what it is, I wouldn't have to make excuses.
Yeah, ownership and redundancy, having a backup plan. Can you talk me through some of the greatest benefits of using an outsourced team?
Well, obviously, there's some of the very obvious ones, like you're going to save yourself a lot of time. I mean, in the interim, the initial bit, maybe not so much if you're hiring like sort of less qualified offshore people, or if you're hiring people who are non-native English speaking, you might have to invest a bit more time. But one of the first things is that once you do the handover and you've got all that down, then you'll gain back a whole bunch of your time, which you could do other things with. You can use it to make more money. You can use it to do more marketing. You can use it to do more outreach, whatever the things are that you want to do to grow your business. So I would say time is the biggest factor. Stress levels, obviously. And then it's also about having somebody who knows what they're doing. Many of the people that come to me will have businesses that they've been trying to get off the ground or move forward for sometimes 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and they've been stuck in that same state of, I've been trying to do everything myself and trying to learn everything myself. And, I'm just getting overwhelmed and I'm not moving forward. And sometimes you kind of have to hand over to someone who does know what they're doing in order to get, again, the result that you want to see. So for me, it's all about looking at what you want to achieve and then being honest with yourself and saying, am I the best person to be doing these tasks in order to achieve it? Or is there somebody better out there that could do it in half the time, probably for a fraction of the cost, and that type of thing. And then in the end, if the answer is, well, yeah, I'm not the best person to be doing this task, then that task is best outsourced.
And what I found is I'm so busy doing so many other things that often I don't have time to focus. And when I hire an executor that can help me focus, often I'm 3 times as effective than if I try to make time to do it myself and have all those distract.
Yeah, it's really interesting because how I operate is I tend to manage. So I take over everything and I just say to people, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want to see happen. And then they'll tell me their goals, their business goals, the things they want to achieve and things like that. And they don't have to worry about all the details because I will then plan it all out and then I will give them a to-do list. And I will say, right, I need this, 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 and this. And then everything that suddenly became very overwhelming for them just is down on a to-do list with just some tasks that they have to complete. So from my perspective, what I'm able to do for clients in that respect is really very valuable for people.
Michelle, can you share with us a story of a company that's implemented an outsourced team and maybe the results or the difference that's made for them?
Yeah, and there's some examples for myself. Literally you can go from startup to having a business that looks like it's completely together and established in less than 3 months. And that to people is huge. The speed of what can be achieved with somebody who knows what they're doing and has done it like a million times. Like if you yourself, you've done hundreds of podcast episodes, you're going to be 100 times better than you were when you did your first podcast episode. And it works the same when you're outsourcing. So obviously, by hiring the people who know what they're talking about, for example, somebody came to me with an idea of a business that they've wanted to start for 5 years. And they're researching online and they're trying to think of what they need and they're going to this source and things like that. And then suddenly you hire somebody who's literally built the type of business many, many times over in the last decade, 2 decades. And then suddenly that person is able to tell them, okay, this is everything you need. This is how it's done. These are the systems that we need to do it in. This is how much it's going to cost. This is the ongoing operational cost of the business. And we can have it done within 3 months. So literally people can go from zero to having a business that's established and waiting for clients. And then if you're able to then give them the marketing strategies to be able to promote that business, then that's great. I mean, I've had people come to me for a training and literally have been able to recoup their full-time income from redundancy in less than 2 weeks. It just depends on how quickly, the quicker you work and the quicker you can get things done, but still maintain obviously the quality of what you're looking to do, then the quicker you can move forward in your business. And time is really of the essence always.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. If our audience has enjoyed what you've shared and they want to learn more about your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
They can go to www.virtualmissfriday.com. All my social media links are in the footer if you want to connect. Browse around my website, and obviously there's my business model, Outsourcing, on there as well. And you can check out my pledge, which I talked about here as well. So you can kind of help manage the expectations between people you're hiring too.
And for my audience, if you have not checked out the VIP upgrade package for the summit, please do so. Click on the link below and you can learn how to get a free trial of the PodUp software and a free challenge course that can help you get your first podcast site up and launched, your first episode recorded, edited, and syndicated within 7 days. Thank you so much, and I wish you success. If you choose to outsource, I wish you success in your outsourcing as you grow your podcast. And here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, outsourcing can help enable entrepreneurs to run their businesses from virtually anywhere in the world, as demonstrated by Michelle's ability to operate from Egypt. Number 2, almost every aspect of podcasting can be outsourced, except for the actual hosting, including research, scheduling, content planning, and editing. Number 3, when outsourcing, it's crucial to have a central project management system where all team members can collaborate and access information. Number 4, video tutorials and screencasts are effective for training remote team members, especially those for whom English is a second language. Number 5, working with deadlines rather than specific hours can help overcome time zone differences when managing a remote team. Number 6, hiring independent contractors who run their own businesses can lead to more dedication and better results than traditional employees. Number 7, clear communication of expectations and responsibilities is vital when working with outsourced team members and avoiding misunderstandings. Number 8, over-communicating and providing detailed instructions are essential when working with remote teams to ensure tasks are completed correctly. Number 9, having redundancy in your team or training multiple people for the same task can help mitigate issues caused by holidays, sick leave, or other absences. And finally, number 10, outsourcing can significantly reduce the time spent on tasks, lower stress levels, and allow business owners to focus on growth and revenue-generating activities. And it can give you a whole bunch more freedom to choose the life that you want to live. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Podcasting Secrets. I wish you success in your outsourcing efforts. And if you're looking for a great podcasting platform, I recommend you check out PodUp, where you can get 35 integrated modules to help create, grow, and monetize a business around a podcast. You can get a free trial at podup.com.